Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
All right, you're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
How would you like to line up across the gridiron with somebody with that type of girth?
Joe Gimateo.
The only thing I'm afraid of is snakes and alligators.
That's one of my favorite parts. I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on March 20th, 1995. This Raw was recorded at the Memorial Civic Auditorium in Stockton, California, and features Vince McMahon, Jim Cornette, and briefly Steve Mongo McMichael on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, then, let's get into it. So for our intro this evening, there's no fucking around tonight. It's straight into the intro sequence. Welcome, everyone, to Monday Night Raw. Tonight, history will be made because the Heavenly Bodies are going to defeat the Smoking Guns to become the tag team champions. So Jim Cornette says, something that Cornette feels the Heavenly Bodies deserve. So right off the bat, guys, this brings up a question that I want to throw at you just real quick here, right off the bat. At this point in 1995, who does actually deserve it? What is the best WWF tag team right now? Ryan, just real quick, why don't you go first with that?
The best right now? I mean, one of the most exciting we've seen in recent times was based off of this episode, was officially broke up this episode. The 1, 2, 3 Kid and Bob Holly. I was really liking watching them, even though they're not a named tag team like the Smoking Guns or the Head Shrinkers. I enjoyed every time they were in the ring, so I'm sad that they appear to be dying this week.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mentioned that before. I think I like them as a tag team, and I really enjoyed their matches with the Smoking Guns. So I'd say those two are the best right now.
See, that's funny because and I'm sure you probably won't be surprised with this, but
you like Men on a Mission.
No. I kind of feel that the Heavenly Bodies are up there, and if anybody deserved a title shot, it was certainly them. I mean, obviously they're kind of the heel team that doesn't necessarily, I mean, they're almost a step above jobbers. After
this match, I may or may not agree with you.
Interesting. But I mean, they've been a mainstay for how long now, through all of the stupid shit that the tag team division has gone through.
He just needs to keep that pelvis in action.
Yeah, it's just so repulsive.
Take a shot every time Vince McMahon says repulsive tonight. Like I said, I wanted to hit you guys with that right off the bat because Cornette states it, and I kind of agreed with him. If anybody deserved it, I felt
it's horrible. I mean, I think we've all said the tag team division is like the worst ever right now. It's just in general just so bad.
The best team is Owen Hart and Mystery Partner.
Yeah.
All right. Well, later on, King Kong Bundy will be taking on two adversaries in a handicap match. Apparently, Bundy has already singled out Reggie White at WrestleMania for some reason. Steve Mongo McMichael will be here later to assist with commentary, but I guess Kama doesn't like that for some reason. Can either of you give me a quick update on why Kama picked Steve McMichael to hate on?
Because they told us last week that they hated each other.
Everybody has to get like one guy, I guess. Like they have to match up everybody in the $1 million corporation with one of LT's buddies.
Yeah.
It's like a gang movie where the other gang has a, adversary for one person on each team.
They're going to simulate the Beat It video at WrestleMania.
See, I thought they were going to simulate the Sharks and the Jets. They were going to stroll up to the ring with the...
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I didn't know if there was something that maybe I wasn't remembering where Kama and McMichael specifically crossed words or anything, because really this was the first that we were hearing about it in any kind of depth was here tonight. We'll get into that later, though. That's something I'm looking forward to talking about with you guys. But despite the fact that we're lining up a WWF versus NFL angle here, we're going to go to the man who oozes machismo in what will be our first match of the night. Razor Ramon defeats Henry Godwinn by pinfall in 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Godwinn is already in the ring waiting for Razor, and the shit-talking starts immediately as Godwinn starts getting in Razor's face, throwing a pointer finger up in there, getting all up in the business. And I have to note that this is one of those rare occasions where we get two competitors that can go eye to eye with one another. These superstars are both about the same height. Razor is in a little better shape, but Godwinn is no slouch either. He is a brick shithouse. After some shoving, we get a great little example of that machismo that Vince loves to gush over, as Razor gives us the slightest of shrugs after being shoved by Godwinn. After another shove, Razor responds with an open-handed slap, followed by the "ooh, I'm scared" gesture that Scott Hall made famous. Already, I am liking what I am seeing in the ring here. There's a tight and fast tie-up, and the work begins. These guys are already working great together, as Razor utilizes an arm hold to manipulate Godwinn through a series of hits designed to injure the shoulder. They aren't good enough, however, as Godwinn is able to break the hold by pulling Razor into a fantastic clothesline that gets the job done, but doesn't change the fact that Godwinn has a bit of a shoulder issue to deal with in this match now. Godwinn performs a bit of a complex slam on Razor, all brawn as he lands it and gloats a little. Now that he's in control, it's all big power moves from Godwinn, with repeated hard whips to the corner, a power slam, and finally a side headlock that Godwinn uses to ram Razor's head into the turnbuckle. I have to note here that once again, Cornette is going a mile a minute on the microphone. I'm only catching snippets of it because I'm paying more attention to what's going on in the ring, but it's like a constant stream of consciousness talking going on in the background. Maybe you guys have some info on what he's actually saying, but it was like a fucking horsefly buzzing in my ear this entire match. Razor rallies now with some punches, but not for long as Godwinn takes control, back with a catch and slam, putting Razor's face to the mat. There's some pretty good crowd interaction here, booing Godwinn as he yells out to them. Godwinn is going to start with the heel moves now, choking Razor off the rope, pinning his head to the mat with a knee on the neck. Vince informs us that apparently JR was present at one of the secret Lawrence Taylor training sessions in preparation for LT's match with Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania. And if you want to find out what Jim Ross knows, you need to call 1-900-SHAMELESS, $1.49 a minute, and get the story straight from JR. But here, we do get a new tidbit of information. Apparently, unlike other 1-900 numbers, the WWF 900 number doesn't start billing you until you choose your option.
Mighty big of them.
I know. In this case, JR is option 6. Last time we heard a reference to options was going into that Hard Rock Cafe thing, press conference, kinda, whatever it was. And JR was on option 2 there. And we questioned just how many options there are, so apparently there are at least 6 at this point. This whole time in the ring, Godwinn has been slowing the match down with heel moves and holds, getting the crowd more and more involved until finally there's a Razor chant that Razor draws from, breaking a headlock and rallying. We'll break to commercial, and now it's a slugfest, trading punches until Razor finally comes out on top. Razor is able to get Godwinn to the corner, where Razor attempts, I guess what you'd call a reverse press onto Godwinn into a pinfall, but gets the 2 count just as the roadie is coming down the entryway, gesturing and making faces at Razor and distracting Razor just long enough to allow Godwinn a hit to the back of Razor's head. But wait, back at the entryway again, the 1-2-3 Kid has snuck up behind the roadie and delivers a roundhouse kick, putting the roadie to the concrete. This attack on the roadie is enough to distract Godwinn now, who climbs up a rope or two to yell over the top rope at the 1-2-3 Kid. Thankfully, though, that extra height is what is needed for Razor to get a big man the size of Henry Godwinn up into a full extension Razor's Edge, and after performing the Razor's Edge, Godwinn flops to his back, with Razor getting the pin and the 3 counts. Razor and the Kid share a quick handshake, while Henry Godwinn helps the still reeling roadie up the entryway, shaking his slop bucket at the fans. We'll get a word from the bad guy and the Kid when we return, but first, Joe, what did you think of our opening match?
I actually forgot this match was announced last week, so it was kind of nice to see it as our opener. 2 non-jobbers. It's always nice to see that. Even though Henry Godwinn kind of got the jobber treatment at the beginning with no introduction.
Yeah.
So I guess we officially found out that Henry Godwinn is a heel, I guess, or at least he was in this match. And it's you mentioned he's helping the roadie after, so we know he's a heel. I thought the match was okay. Obviously, this match was setting up other things with the ending. Henry Godwinn, something that I noticed was that he really, like, the Razor's Edge was a little bit awkward because he had to get up on the ropes for Razor to do it, but he really sold the shit out of it. Kind of like stood on his head a little bit to sell it, which is pretty impressive for a big guy like that. And Jim Cornette keeps calling him Henry O. Godwinn. So I guess he does go by that name, which is Hog. So that makes sense. And the only other thing I noted here, did you guys notice anything odd about this referee? Did you guys like the way that he looked?
He was almost as tall as both of them, which that's the only thing that I noted, is that he was almost the same size as them, because usually they put smaller referees in with bigger guys to emphasize how big they look in comparison.
Okay. I was going with something a little more simple. He looked like Mo from the Three Stooges. Like he had the exact same haircut and look.
Spread out.
And I couldn't get past it. I just couldn't get past it. That's all I have.
I was excited for this match, from the get-go when I heard it was these two, because I think all of us here at Wrasslin Raw have probably talked about how much we enjoy both of these people, more so Razor Ramon, but ever since Henry Godwinn has made his way in here, we've been kind of talking him up as well. So I was kind of excited going into this, and right out of the get-go, Bartlett, you mentioned one of my favorite Razor Ramon things, which is the "ooh, I'm scared" look and hand motion. He just does it so beautifully, and I love every time I see it. This match didn't disappoint. I thought from the very beginning, Godwinn is kind of in control a good chunk of it. And then every time he's not, though, Godwinn's selling good, Razor's selling good. I thought these guys were working good together. Bartlett, this is something you mentioned. It was a few weeks ago, but it was emphasized here, how Godwinn has a good way of doing his bruiser moves through most of the match, but just sprinkling in every once in a while these more complicated moves, like when he grabbed Razor by the legs and kind of flipped him up and over and slammed him back onto his stomach. I'm not sure what the move was called, but it was executed well, and Razor made it look good as well. So going into this, we were confused as to whether Godwinn is a heel or a face, but that seems to have been answered tonight. One part I really enjoyed was Godwinn hamming up to the crowd when he grabbed a handful of the back of Razor's hair and he's like prancing them around the ring to the crowd, getting the boos. Like that's just classic heel stuff there. And it was working. I mean, he got the crowd involved, which is what a heel is supposed to do. Unfortunately, right after that, we get that jarring minute-long push for the 1-800-SHAMELESS out of Vince. And, it's not as bad as one of these terrible, like, Piper or Lawler calls, but it was a mood killer. It was distraction. It was a distraction from what I thought was a pretty entertaining match. And that's kind of how I'm going to end it. I liked the stuff with the Road Dogg at the end, too, furthering this story. Is this the first time we've seen the roadie alone, not with Double J?
Yeah, I tend to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the Kid coming out, and I'm starting to think, are we in the near future going to see a Rhodey, Double J, and Kid and Ramon match? I mean, that seems like that's what we're getting set up for here. So yeah, I enjoy where this story seems to be going, and I thought it was a pretty good match.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there on that one. Just for the record, I do not think that this is anywhere near a match of the year candidate. However, this was a pretty damn good match, all things considered. We really haven't seen Henry Godwinn go up against somebody the caliber of Razor Ramon here, and it's always great to see Razor go up against somebody his own size, just because, usually you get a good working example of Razor working down to somebody. And while I do mean that occasionally working down to jobbers, but, in the case of Double J, Jeff Jarrett, he had to work down to somebody that was, kind of a good foot shorter than him. It was good to see Razor be able to go toe-to-toe with somebody here. And their styles pretty close to each other, kind of brawler-ish. One of my favorite parts of this was whenever Razor had Henry O. Godwinn up in the Razor's Edge, and Godwinn was selling it, just kind of wailing like a baby, and you saw the big gap tooth in there, and he was just wah! Right before going down. Thought that was fantastic. Kind of surprising that we are so clearly getting a heel out of Henry O. Godwinn here. I thought maybe we would kind of keep it ambiguous for a little while longer. I mean, being the pig farmer from Arkansas and the Bill Clinton analog that he is, I assumed that he would eventually become a heel one way or the other, but I didn't expect it to become so blatant, I guess. Aside from that, yeah, you guys have pretty much hit all of the high notes with this one. Fantastic work from both people. A very professional, respectable anchor match for what went on to be somewhat of a slog of an episode. This was a high point going in. Which brings us to the next area here, guys. And I didn't know what to title this exactly, so I called this the first section of the wall of non-matches. This was a lot of material going on that was not wrestling. So we'll talk about, chunks of it and get your comments here, and then we'll get on to the next match eventually. I'm sure we're all not looking forward to talking about that one, but first up, we've got promotional consideration paid for by the following. Bam Bam selling Slim Jims. Once again, that's all right. Vince is now at ringside for the post-match interview with Razor and the 1-2-3 Kid. Vince states that Razor is apparently upset about Bob Backlund manipulating his way into that Intercontinental match against Jeff Jarrett, completely ignoring the fact that if anybody here has a right to be pissed off, it's Barry fucking Horowitz.
Ruined.
Scott Hall delivers a decent promo here. It's kind of lessened because he's very obviously winded from what was, a respectable match. We're not going to hold that against him, but I think it could have maybe been a little bit better if he hadn't been so out of breath. But the promo is centered around the idea that Double J could lose to Backlund via the chicken wing, then he's got my gold. Then Backlund meets Bret Hart at WrestleMania. Bret Hart puts on the sharpshooter. Then Bret Hart's got my gold. Razor Ramon wants his gold back, goddammit, and that is in reference to the Intercontinental Championship. Razor then exits up the entryway with the 1-2-3 Kid as Vince gives us a breakdown of what happened last week in what is quite possibly the darkest day in the history of professional wrestling. We are treated to a video replay of the utter and complete fucking over of Barry Horowitz, where Bob Backlund steals Barry's shot at the Intercontinental title as Double J is yelling, "No! No!" Then, with zero segue whatsoever, a video package hits the screen, highlighting, once again, the Lex Luger-Tatanka feud. Next week, on Sunday Night Slam, apparently Tatanka and Lex Luger are going to meet in a steel cage match. Also on the card, Bam Bam Bigelow will be taking on Sione, and Diesel finally speaks out because he hasn't done that at just about every opportunity that they can fit him in. Ryan, before we move on to the next section of the wall here, what did you think about the Razor promo, the Barry Horowitz tragedy that everyone here is glossing over, and that out-of-left-field commercial for Sunday Night Slam?
So I'll start with the Razor Ramon thing. Like you said, it was a perfectly fine promo, although winded. He started it off just a little bit too much when you just start putting O's at the end of things. Then it got okay, but I was a little confused because we were told some words from Razor Ramon in the Kid, but we didn't get any words out of the Kid. He was just standing there. So the video with Barry Horowitz, I was cringing through the whole thing. They showed the entire, like, minute for minute of Barry Horowitz being screwed over by Bob Backlund, and it was just as horrendous to watch the second time. The steel cage match with Luger, who cares? We're not going to be forced to see it, thankfully, so I guess that's worth mentioning. So, yay.
The Razor Ramon interview, if I was going to be really critical of it, I would say that it kind of came off as a heel interview. I don't know. He came off as a heel to me. He was like really pissed off and wants his gold back. And he's like basically saying, even if I have to go through Bret Hart to do it, I'll do it. But it was okay. The Barry Horowitz Double J thing, yeah, it's pissing us off because we get to see Bob Backlund get in there and ruin everything. Sunday Night Slam does not look that exciting yet.
I mean, they're putting a steel cage on there, but the contenders...
The big blue cage that everybody hates now.
Yeah.
You hear all these guys talk about how much they hated that cage, but...
It did look cool, though.
Luger and Tatanka again, my God.
Yeah, so I'm with you guys here on all this. I see what you're saying about the heel thing with Razor's promo there, but I mean, I was taken up by it. Once he got to repeating the phrase, "He's got my gold," that's when it kind of grabbed me. Like, all right, there's a certain rhythm to this, and he got into it with that. You know, it did its job of getting me engaged with this story until we got to the references to Bob Backlund, and then I just got pissed off all over again because. Mm-hmm. Everybody is just ignoring the fact that they fucked over Barry Horowitz, and I
what we could have had.
Yes. And you know, Ryan, you're absolutely right. We are not going to be seeing this Lex Luger Tatanka steel cage match, thankfully. But I felt it was important to just highlight it with this because they're still pushing this as if people give a shit, and I think it's pretty clear people don't. The fans are just not really engaged with this at all from all evidence we've seen so far.
Sunday Night Slam, though, I mean, at that point, that's almost like a house show. So do people care about it? I mean, they're putting Tatanka Luger on the C or D show at this point.
Yeah. That's a great point.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I think everybody wants more wrestling, but this is nothing to get excited about at all.
Yeah.
Luger Tatanka.
Yeah, and honestly, it just kind of feels like they're cheapening the idea of the steel cage with this. And as we'll find out, maybe next week, maybe the steel cage is becoming a dime a dozen right now. I don't know. It used to be something special. All right, well, the enormous block of non-wrestling is going to continue. And we are back at ringside. Vince very unenthusiastically reiterates that Luger is going to be in a steel cage match. I got the feeling from this that Vince is just as tired of Luger as the rest of us are. And yet to come tonight, we're going to hear from Lawrence Taylor as well as Steve Mongo McMichael. And for the record, this is me putting Mongo in there. Nobody has called him Mongo. I call him Mongo. Cornette is leaving ringside to go back to the locker room and meet up with his heavenly bodies. And I think I'm just as happy as Vince at that prospect. We get another ad for the WWF Fan Festival, that WWF Space Camp that has tons of WWF-themed stuff. Imagine, guys, getting a personal note from Lex Luger, autograph from Adam Baum, or meeting with Dink, who appeared to be donkless. Vince gives us
that sounds like the worst advertisement ever.
Yeah,
I picked those just for you
guys. I know.
Although, Ryan, you do know what it feels like to get an autograph from Adam Bomb.
That was the first thing I thought of when I saw him signing that autograph. I was wondering if that's who you eBayed that photo for, is the kid in that shot.
No, I'm willing to bet that kid probably just threw that in the garbage right after it happened.
That's true.
Vince gives us a brief statement about the WWF being the only entity out there that cares about us, the fans, before moving to an interview with LT. We have the same format as last week, with a word popping up and then LT's response to it. In response to fear, LT fears no man, but he does fear snakes and alligators. In response to Bam Bam, LT is pretty sure that Bam Bam does not consist of snakes and alligators. But he does see Bam Bam as a pussycat, and we get a fantastic little scene of Bam Bam doing a psych up in the ring with the sound of a cat meowing overdubbed on it. Hilarious. In response to prediction, at the end of the day, LT is pretty damn sure he can take Bam Bam. Let's now go to the action zone. Apparently Bam Bam beat Donk the Clown, which is only correct. But then Bam Bam wanted to show off what he is going to do to LT, giving us his 3-point stance, which prompts Vince McMahon to give us one of the most ridiculous play-by-plays that I have ever heard. As if he were on the gridiron. As if Doink the Clown were the quarterback. Yes, we're down, set, ready, hut, 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 hut. And big man charges him down, goes Doink the Clown. Hut, 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 hut. Before we move on to an attempt at wrestling, Joe, what are your thoughts on the FanFest, LT's promo, and that football-themed seizure that Vince had on air?
Well, I'll just skip the football-themed seizure because you pretty much described that perfectly.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything else to say there. It was nice to see Donk get totally destroyed, though. That was nice. Mm-hmm. But going back to the FanFest commercial, I noticed this is the second annual FanFest for WWF. So it's still in the beginnings, and it's interesting to see this in 95. You know, now you have all these Comic Cons and everything like that, and this seems to be something like that a little bit, where you can meet the superstars and get their autographs and get photos and all that stuff.
Almost like a Trek convention.
Yeah, which is, you know, those events are very popular now. So it seemed like they were doing a good job with figuring that out in 95. The LT interview was probably one of the most bizarre interviews that he's done so far. I don't know. It was just weird. He came off as very strange in this one.
I'll just jump in and agree with you on the LT spot. The snakes and alligators, I was seriously laughing out loud when he said it. Like,
remember a couple weeks ago when he said, "When I get scared, I call the police." So I wonder if he calls the police when he sees a snake.
For snakes and alligators. Well, I mean, maybe the game commission. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was short though, but still delivered really good by him. A little nonsensical, but it was funny. It wasn't that bad, but it was odd. So complete agreement with you on Joe with that. Going to quickly skip back to the fan festival. And again, I, as a kid, would have been extremely excited to go to this, except for getting a love letter from Lex Luger or whatever they said. That part I could have done without. But this commercial, I have to say, it is one of the oddest of the WWF commercials that we've seen. It felt like a 90s local mall commercial. Just like, I don't know, just the music, the wording, the voiceover woman. It sounded like a local commercial, not a WWF commercial. That's my only thing to point out for that, and that I'm jealous of those kids. I would have loved it. The footage from Action Zone, I only wanted to point out that I love that they only showed us the one thing that's important. Donk getting annihilated by Bam Bam. That's the only footage they show us. So I'm happy we didn't have to actually watch this match. We just got to see Donk get killed.
Come on down to the WWF Fan Fest, only at the Monroeville Expo Mart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have loved that too, honestly. Although I can't help but wonder if Lex Luger was maybe writing salacious messages to children on those pictures. Have you ever been in a Turkish bath, Timmy? As far as everything else goes, that LT thing was hilarious. I loved it. Snakes and alligators. I was even more entertained by the Bam Bam as a pussycat and then Bam Bam going meow in the ring. I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, all of LT's stuff was still good. It's still the best that you can possibly expect from a non-wrestling talent, you know?
Civilian.
Yeah, civilian. Yeah. And very, very gratifying to see Donk get smeared by Bam Bam. That was pretty awesome.
Hot, hot, hot.
Hot, 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 hot.
He said it like 95 times.
Yeah, yeah. And Big Man charges him down, goes Donk the Clown. That's the end of this particular wall here. And we're going to move it on to our next match. King Kong Bundy defeats Adam Crooms and Raven Clark by pinfall in a handicap match in 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Ryan, are either of these guys jobbers of the week?
No, there's no real jobber of the week this week. Adam Crooms and Raven Clark. This is Adam Crooms' only recorded match from any wrestling organization that you could find on the internet. That's it. Next, all of Raven Clark's matches are from the WWE, and there is only 9 of them. They are sparsely sprinkled from 1993 to 1998. So I could only guess that he's some kind of like backstage help that they only throw in there in a pinch when they really need someone. Like in this case, they don't want to completely humiliate someone who's going to actually try and make a career out of wrestling.
He's probably just like a guy on the ring crew that they kind of
that's kind of what I'm thinking. But his losses came from, in order of appearance, The Undertaker, Yokozuna, the team of IRS and $1 Million Man, Mr. Hughes, the Heavenly Bodies, Bob Backlund, King Kong Bundy, Duke the Dumpster Drozy, and finally Double J Jeff Jarrett. So, sorry, no proper jobber of the week yet again, but we could only work with what we're given. It's something that we knew was going to happen from the start as the WWF starts to use less and less jobbers in their programming, but it's still sad to see nevertheless. This isn't the last segment by any means, but just a warning going forward. This is going to start to happen more and more.
And we will all be sad at not getting to hear your dulcet tones every week.
In order to make King Kong Bundy not look like a jobber, they had to find the absolute bottom of the barrel jobbers to make this possibly work.
Well, that's like that's why I couldn't give either of them even a jobber of the week, because I'm not even sure they're jobbers. They're literally like, civilians. All right, guys, yeah, these are civvies. They're pulling in for this.
Props for King Kong Bundy to flop around on for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Well, back at the match. At this time, as the jobbers are patiently waiting in the ring, the announcer is going to introduce one of the most dominating linemen ever to play in the National Football League, formerly of the Chicago Bears and now a member of the Green Bay Packers, and more importantly, a member of LT's All-Pro team, former All-Pro Mr. Steve McMichael. Mongo really milks the crowd for as much as he can get while he takes a quick detour through the ring, and then joins Vince at ringside on commentary. Now, King Kong Bundy is going to make his way down to the ring, and it's horrible right off the bat. I can't even begin to describe the action here, because that might infer that there's anything here worth watching. I distinctly noted that I felt so bad for these jobbers having to be in this fucking match. And this was, I was doing this before we even had the discussion about jobbers of the week and how these guys probably aren't even really jobbers, but I feel so bad for these guys. Because it's basically what I said before. It was King Kong Bundy just flopping on them for 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So, after what felt like a lot longer than 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Bundy pins, I think that was Raven Clark with a foot on the chest, calling for 5. But once again, the referee just completely ignores him.
I do love that the WWF refs just keep on denying him that 5.
Yes. Bundy spends some time continuing the beatdown of the jobbers while the lights go down and the $1 million corporation music hits. And this beatdown of the jobbers, just about everyone continues to completely ignore. The camera doesn't even really try to catch any of it. He just spends some time flopping around on them some more. But here comes Kama, who Mongo has been referring to repeatedly as Coma, down to the ring. Is this Coma? What does he want? Kama is sick and tired of Mongo running his mouth about things he knows nothing about, even though this is the first time Mongo has been here. And in a sudden, shocking, awesome turn of events, Mongo gives Kama a brief shove, which Kama answers with a drink thrown in Mongo's face. And Mongo then somehow immediately demolishes the video equipment and half of the broadcast table just standing up, before just full-on taking down Kama there on the mat at ringside. They are going at it. It doesn't really look like wrestling, but damn, it looked great. This ends with Mongo yelling across a group of officials, "I'll see you at WrestleMania!" Ryan, what did you think of this match, and more importantly, what happened after this match?
This match was just disgraceful. We have these two no-name, forgettable jobbers, and they have this sad misfortune of having to job out to King Kong Bundy, and it's just pathetic. I don't have anything else to talk about. It's terrible. King Kong Bundy is terrible, and it looks terrible. No one in here deserved Jobber of the Week, and that's why no one got it. Commentary with Steve McMichaels, he's the best part of it. He's not great on commentary, but you could tell if he was given a little bit more time to warm up the things, then he could probably do a pretty decent job at it. And then the stuff with Kama, I thought was pretty good too. This match was worthless, but all of the stuff after it was entertaining. When Kama came down, gave his quick promo, I thought it was pretty good, but I did laugh when Vince kind of gave him the "let's wrap it up" talk, and then the confrontation starts. And like you said, it looked good. It didn't necessarily look like wrestling, but it looked like a real fight. And by far the most entertaining part of this match.
There was one thing about the King Kong Bundy match, I guess you'd call it, that I did think was, I thought was pretty funny at the end. So the match is over and the music is playing, the $1 Million Man music is playing, and they're doing like the graphics in the ring, you know, like it's dark and they have those graphics in the ring, and he's still flopping his fat body all over these jobbers. Like he's still throwing them around and just throwing his disgusting body into
girth.
Well, it just won't stop. So I did think that was kind of funny. Other than that, there's really nothing to say about the match. As far as Mongo goes, I didn't think Mongo was very good on commentary, but I mean, it was a nice change of pace with Jim Cornette and Mongo being like total opposites. Mongo was a pretty bad wrestler when he did wrestle with WCW. There's actually a Twitter page that I follow that's like basically posts some sort of Mongo botch like every day, and it's pretty funny. But this staged fight was awesome. I loved it. I thought that it looked, and Bartlett, you mentioned it's not, it didn't look like wrestling, but it looked like a fight, like Ryan mentioned, and it just looked real. And I think everybody involved did a pretty good job, including like all the security people and like Vince yelling and screaming the whole time. Kind of like he did when Bob Backlund put the chicken wing on that reporter, that writer.
Gianfrido.
Yeah. So I really liked it. I thought it was good. The only thing I don't like about it is like where are they going with it? You know what I mean? Like, what's the point of this when you already have LT and Bam Bam kind of doing the same thing? But I still liked it.
Yeah, it's like, are these guys going to have a match? And if not, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that I made my feelings on the match clear enough in my breakdown there, or lack thereof, because I didn't want to even identify it. Yeah, air quotes, match. But this stuff, and well, before before I talk about that, Mongo on the microphone at commentary, I feel like I'm kind of in between you guys. It wasn't that great. I'm not sure that I would agree with you, Ryan, that he could be good eventually. I'm not sure. And what Joe said about his later wrestling career kind of suggests.
Yeah, like I didn't think that this was great. I just thought that I thought I was hearing just little bits of something that could be good if he had a little bit more practice at it, but I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, I'm not quite as far on the other end as Joe is on this one. I didn't necessarily dislike it either. I got hints of Art Donovan out of it. Not total, just complete idiocy like Art Donovan, but certain little comments like, he ain't that big, and just, I face bigger guys than him all the time. And just little things like that made it entertaining.
It sounds like we've learned our lesson with trying to give football guys a chance at wrestling commentary then.
Yeah. But once the kerfuffle starts with Kama there at the end, I was all in on that. I didn't know that that's where it was headed until Steve McMichael stood up and kind of snapped Kama's singlet. He's like, you got little suspenders here, huh? And Kama, that's when the shoving started. And as soon as Kama launched that drink in Mongo's face, and he nailed him in the face. I don't know if you guys noticed that or not, but he blew Mongo's hair back with the liquid in that cup. He fucking railed him in the face with that. And as soon as McMichael stood up and just, I didn't even see how it happened, but all of a sudden the table was trashed and shit was laying, the video monitors were down and busted up, and then Mongo just, I don't even know what you'd call that if it was on a football field, but he just took Kama down. It was like a straight shoulder tackle, something, but he fucking just laid Kama out. It was great to watch. And like we've all said here, it looked like a fight. It wasn't wrestling, but it looked good. And I do agree with you guys. It's not going to go anywhere from here. And that's a shame because it was pretty interesting. I enjoyed watching it. But, if we had to sit through the Bundy match to get to it, I'm not sure I want to pay that price. Speaking of paying a price to get to another match, WrestleMania report with Todd Pettingzoo. There was really a pretty epic intro to this. It was like a wide world of sports intro on acid going into this. And wonder of all wonders, Todd Pettingzoo got a fucking haircut. I can't believe it. He no longer has the Lego Man mullet. He still has Lego Man hair. It's just not a mullet anymore.
I actually had that noted here if I couldn't tell if he got a haircut. So I was going to ask.
Maybe it's in a ponytail.
Yeah, you're right. Shit, I didn't think about that. Damn it.
But it certainly, it certainly looks like he maybe did.
I also have it noted, I think he got a haircut.
Yeah.
Well, Hollywood's biggest stars have cleared their calendars to join us. Diesel will be meeting Shawn Michaels and his bodyguard Syd to vie for the WWF Championship. And here we'll have a promo from Shawn Michaels and Syd. It's pretty solid from Shawn Michaels. But for me, what's notable here is that Syd doesn't say a word throughout the entire thing. All Syd does is give subtle nods to what Shawn is saying at the appropriate places. But Syd does not blink. Syd does not deviate eye contact with the camera. Syd doesn't move at all.
Scary as fuck.
Other than those small nods. And manages to, for me at least, completely become the focus of this promo. My God, the man is fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And it's like he was staring straight at me, like straight in the eyes.
It was like one of those paintings from a horror movie where it's always staring at you.
Yes. Syd was just, all right, well, we'll talk about it here in a minute. The Intercontinental Champ Double J will be meeting Razor Ramon for the IC title. You'll also see the Hitman Bret Hart meet Mr. Bob Backlund one more time in an I Quit match. Hopefully this is the last time. You will also see the unearthly Undertaker with Paul Bearer, but without his urn, face the mighty King Kong Bundy. And we'll get a promo from Paul Bearer and the Undertaker. But first, I just have to note that even in these graphics up on the screen, like representing the match card that Petting Zoo is showing us, King Kong Bundy looks fucking terrible. He's got what appears to be a whore's blossom taking over an entire corner of his gaping, clicking maw. This is yet another Oscar-worthy performance by the most beautiful man in wrestling, and he caps his short spiel with every birth certificate comes a death certificate, and yours has been signed at WrestleMania, before doing a quick turkey like flashing the look up to the Undertaker, and then staring out at the screen in terror as the Undertaker cuts a quick promo, with Paul Bearer practically nestling into the Undertaker's arm and armpit before ending with his stance and the creepy come here gesture. Also at WrestleMania, the Allied powers, Lex Luger and British Bulldog, will reenact World War II as they take on some Nazis in the Blue Brothers. There will be celebrities, Pam Anderson, Nicholas Turturro, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Jenny McCarthy, all taking part in the biggest night of the year. Thankfully, the sound of Jim Cornette introducing the Heavenly Bodies interrupts Todd Petting Zoo because I know it doesn't feel like it with my breakdown here, but this was a very long WrestleMania report. Before we get to that match, though, Joe, please, what did you think about this week's WrestleMania report?
Well, before I talk about that, I sent you guys the picture of Todd Petting Zoo from the recent NXT In Your House special that they ran.
Yeah.
He was on it, and I watched it today.
Oh.
And
how
he
was
is
that?
Just as terrible as he was 25 years ago.
Did he grow his mullet back?
I can't really tell with his hair, kind of like this, but he sort of looks like, I sent you guys that picture. He kind of looks like Gary Shandling a little bit to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah.
Like older Gary Shandling.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he was horrible. He cracked these stupid jokes during it. The other couple things they did that were cool was they had an Ico Pro commercial thrown in there. It was like a throwback type of pay-per-view thing they were doing. This report, it's the same as every other stupid report that he does. Thank God it's almost over because we're 2 weeks away from WrestleMania here, so we won't have to put up with this. But I'm glad that we got the Paul Bearer and Undertaker interview to kind of save it a little bit. Again, I just find myself staring at Paul Bearer the whole time. I have no idea what the Undertaker said because I'm just watching Paul Bearer the whole time, just being weird and hiding behind the Undertaker, and he's just so fucking weird, and I love it.
So yeah, this Petting Zoo report is been like the rest of them, long and tiresome. But we had two standouts here. We had the Shawn Michaels promo with fucking Syd just being scary as fuck as always without saying a single thing. Just looking at your soul, he terrifies you. And then the Paul Bearer Undertaker promo. You know, it starts out as just kind of your standard promo out of these two. Paul Bearer setting it up and turning it over to the Undertaker, but I have to reiterate how beautiful this man's face is. I mean, Paul Bearer, of course, I'm talking about. When the Undertaker says the line, "At WrestleMania, you come face to face with the Reaper," the reaction and look from Paul Bearer, it's just so great the way that he looks at him. Like, I want to tell anyone that has not watched this, if you want to go back and watch something, just go back and watch this promo and stare at Paul Bearer's face for 2 minutes. And that's all you got to give this because you'll love it. The rest of it, just long, but love Paul Bearer.
Yeah, I'm obviously on board with all of the things that you guys have said here. While Paul Bearer was certainly entertaining as always, my takeaway from this was Syd. It's like seared into my memory, and I'm being a little facetious with that, but it was fucking powerful the way that the guy managed to absolutely radiate menace and violence without moving a hair. He didn't move one bit other than to just a fraction of a nod here and there to emphasize points that Shawn Michaels was laying out for us. He didn't fucking blink. How could a man covered in that much sweat and baby oil not blink?
If someone could terrify you through 25 years,
yes,
he's doing something right.
Yes, absolutely. And that's it. Like I said, Paul Bearer was great. That's always good. And the rest of this was just long and repetitive and tedious, as it always is. But this will take us into our final match of the night. The Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart Gunn, defeat the Heavenly Bodies, that's the Doctor of Desire Tom Pritchard and the Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey with their manager Jim Cornette, by pinfall in 11 minutes and 30 seconds. Cornette introduces the Heavenly Bodies as the idols of every woman in America. The Heavenly Bodies then introduce Jim Cornette, and we get a shot of the Gigolo gesticulating suggestively, with Vince saying, "Oh, that's repulsive." Monday Night Raw is being brought to you by Skittles. We'll have a quick commercial break. When we return, it's time for the Smoking Guns to come down, and I see that they've started to cut down on the Smoking Guns outfits. They now don't have the duster jackets to take off. We'll get a video split screen of Oscar apologizing for Men on a Mission's actions after losing their title shot. And thankfully, it takes up just the right amount of time that's needed while the Smoking Guns take off all their entrance gear and get ready to wrestle. Billy Gunn and Dr. Tom Pritchard started off, and the action is pretty tight as Billy sends Dr. Tom out of the ring. Bart is tagged in, and Dr. Tom lays some serious knife-edge chop slaps to Bart, but then Bart responds with some of his own, sounding equally great. This is a hard-hitting match so far, as Billy is tagged back in, followed by a tag in by the Gigolo that leads to an amazing arm drag takedown by Billy on Del Rey. The Smoking Guns are more or less dominating the match at this point, and the Heavenly Bodies are working and selling with them fantastically. The Guns are just filthy with their fast tags. After the first few minutes of the match, each of the Guns haven't spent more than a minute in the ring at a time, more often tagging out after every move. I'm talking literally every 10 or 15 seconds at times. The fast tags are prevalent with the Guns. After a quick commercial break, the Heavenly Bodies are back in charge and able to distract the referee from seeing the attempt at a tag from the Guns, and as a result, the ref turns around and blocks Billy from entering, arguing with Billy in the corner and clearly missing the double team that the Heavenly Bodies are laying down on Bart. The Gigolo then proceeds to use his knee to violently fuck Bart's ribs. Pritchard comes in, trying to hold Bart, but Bart is just too wide. Vince loves it that he can't lock on this hold. Bart is just too wide. Bart just can't get back to Billy. We're really playing for a hot tag here. The Gigolo has Bart on the mat and mounts Bart from behind, dominantly resting his crotch on Bart's back in the form of a Boston Crab-type sleeper. The Gigolo calls for his finisher, which I have to happily note is no longer a moonsault after breaking his hips twice in past attempts, but is now a simple splash. And it's a good thing, too, because Bart rolls out of the way, but not so as to prevent the tag in of Pritchard. But we finally do get that hot tag, and Billy comes in and cleans house. Things quickly become a clusterfuck in the ring, with both teams going in and out, a distracted referee, pinfalls, interference, until finally we settle back into Billy Gunn and Jimmy Del Rey. Finally, after trading 2 quick pins, Billy Gunn is able to roll Jimmy Del Rey over into a pin for a clean victory. Ryan, what did you think of this Tag Team Championship match to round out Raw's wrestling card?
I was surprised with how much I enjoyed this match. In the past, haven't hated the Guns or the Heavenly Bodies, but I really wasn't expecting a match that I enjoyed as much as I did. Right from the get-go, it started out, like you said, just very tight. And the way that you had the Smoking Guns constantly doing their quick tags coming in and out, and the way that the Heavenly Bodies were beautifully playing the role of the heel tag team here, it just really reminded me of a good classic tag team wrestling match, with it just being fast-paced, always got fresh men in there, not too many time-wasting moves happening here with sleeper holds or bullshit like that. It was just a good, entertaining, well-executed match. Pretty much from start to finish. Wasn't too long, and even how it ended. It ended with this great-looking reversal into this pin combo that I thought looked really good. I thought the Heavenly Bodies really stole the show here. Especially the Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. He looked really great in this match.
I don't have anything negative to say about either team. I really have come to like the Smoking Guns after rewatching all of this stuff. I think that the Smoking Guns are a really good tag team.
Mm-hmm.
And really mainly for the reasons that you guys mentioned, is with the quick tags, just good tag team moves from them. And I think they're worthy of being the tag team champions right now for sure. The Heavenly Bodies, I don't think they're a bad tag team, but they definitely come off as kind of a rental to me.
Their shtick is a little bit cheap.
They kind of are a rental.
Yeah, and they come off as such to me, just a little bit too much. I can't watch this match and actually believe that they might win the tag belts. And Jimmy Del Rey is repulsive. He's repulsive.
He is a damn good wrestler, though. I'll give him that.
Yeah, he is. But it's just the
he's repulsive as all hell, though.
Yeah. Man, do they love backslide pins in 1995? Like they love this. But yeah, with the Smoking Guns, you can clearly tell like they're a good tag team. Billy is the star, but they're still a good tag team. And I can see why like guys like Bruce Pritchard have mentioned that, you know, they thought they had a big star in the making with Billy Gunn during this time period, because he is, you know, he's clearly the star of the team.
So yeah, I agree with just about everything you guys have said here. Some of the things that I really had on my mind watching this match is it kind of dovetails into what you were talking about there. Joe, whenever you were talking about the fact that these guys seem like they're kind of a rental team, you're pretty accurate on that. They came from Smoky Mountain Wrestling with Jim Cornette here. And if I remember correctly, maybe one of you two guys can confirm this for me, but I'm pretty sure it was JR's podcast with Conrad Thompson, where they talked about how they basically just kind of put the Heavenly Bodies together a little while before all of this took place, going to the WWF out of Smoky Mountain. They were going into who was it? Was it the Midnight Express? Way back, like SummerSlam 93.
I don't know.
The Heavenly Bodies were it was a WWF pay-per-view that the Heavenly Bodies won the Smoky Mountain Wrestling tag team titles from somebody. It's kind of like the conversation that we've had before, where Vince likes to take the champions from other promotions and turn them into jobbers. Where while they aren't exactly jobbers here, they have gimmicks and names, and they do fairly well. They're really great in-ring workers. They also job out to other stars, you know, getting them over in the truest heel fashion. The other thing that I always remember whenever it comes to the Heavenly Bodies is, again, I'm pretty sure it was JR talking about it. Actually, no, this one might have been Pritchard. But one of them mentioned the fact that Jimmy Del Rey was a legit pussy slayer. Like, he would go home with somebody different every night from the bar.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
He was a rolling stone, man. He just, apparently, according to them, he rolled through different territories, taking on different gimmicks as needed, and just carved a wide swath of puss across America. As far as the Smoking Guns go, yeah, I'm starting to see really what the big deal is with them there. I always liked them whenever I was a kid, but it was one of those things where whenever they first debuted here, I was like, yeah, I kind of maybe think I only liked them just because I was a kid and didn't really know what was up. But as time goes on, I'm really becoming more and more impressed with the way they work. I'm not quite as impressed with the fast tags. I don't have a problem with it necessarily, but again, and I hate to do this again, but referencing another podcast, that same one that Pritchard talks about how much of a star Billy Gunn was, he also talked about how Billy Gunn never really made it big as a singles competitor because he has asthma. He has, breathing issues. And whenever I see these fast tags, all I can think of is that it's not because it's like a predetermined style or something to make them unique. It's probably because that's the way they had to work to keep Billy Gunn in his wind, to keep the match moving for 11 minutes, because otherwise they might not have been able to do that. That being said, though, I mean, that's not anything to take away from the Smoking Guns whatsoever. If that's the kind of conditions they had to work with, and I could be absolutely wrong about that, but it's kind of seems that way to me. If those are the conditions that they had to work with, then they do it very, very well and make it look great, especially in the way that they usually tend to save up for Billy in the end. Bart goes in, takes all the lumps, and then Billy comes on hard and strong at the very end to get the win, typically, from what we've seen. But overall, I thought this was a great match. I've always liked the Heavenly Bodies, It's just one of those things. I'll never not like the Heavenly Bodies and that repulsive yet oddly seductive gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. Finally, to end this episode, we're going to have yet another wall of non-wrestling. First up, promotional consideration paid for by the following. This time it's that disgraceful Diesel Slim Jim commercial. And then we quickly move to last night at March Magic in New York City, with all of the top superstars breaking kayfabe to support Magic Johnson's AIDS charity. The superstars present included Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, the 1-2-3 Kid, Razor Ramon, Diesel, The Undertaker, and Paul Bearer. Magic is on the microphone talking about how... That's Magic Johnson, excuse me. Magic Johnson is on the microphone talking about how he apparently used to play basketball with Kevin Nash back in high school. Tons of people were there, and over $500,000 were raised for children with AIDS and HIV. Bret and Owen Hart, you thought you had seen it all. And in this case, you're right. This is another brief commercial for next week's Raw with a Todd Pettingzoo voiceover. Next week, on a special edition of Monday Night Raw, we're going to have Bret and Owen in a steel cage match, repeating their encounter from SummerSlam 94. But this time, Pettingzoo assures us that the score will finally be settled. We go back to ringside, and Vince, in his Raw turtleneck, wants to remind us about Sunday Night Slam, Tatanka versus Lex Luger in a steel cage, a special interview with Diesel, Sione versus Bam Bam Bigelow, and Jeff Jarrett defending the Intercontinental Championship against Bob Backlund. Next up, some comments from Tatanka and then Lex Luger. Tatanka cuts a decent enough promo, and then Luger comes back with a promo of his own, apparently having taken some emoting classes, because Luger looks like a toddler throwing a temper tantrum as he gestures with his hands and emotes with his mesomorphic Aryan Neanderthal face. And Lex Luger's annoying face is the last thing we see as we fade to black. Just quickly, guys, Joe first, what did you think about the ending segments of this episode?
The March Magic event with Magic Johnson, I thought it was funny to see Paul Bearer and The Undertaker there in character. But everybody else was kind of like breaking kayfabe a little bit. And it's also funny that they brought out the big guns for Magic Johnson, but at FanFest, you're going to see Adam Bomb and Dink, who will be Donkless. But yeah, it looked like a good event, just a charity event that they're kind of throwing in our face that, hey, we're doing charity work. It didn't really have any other value, I don't think, other than maybe putting Diesel over a little bit more because he played basketball, but I don't think anybody really cares. And Bret and Owen just kind of thrown at us out of nowhere. Bret Hart is kind of being passed around between Owen Hart, Hakushi, and Bob Backlund and Jerry Lawler. So I'm assuming something will happen between one of those guys during this match to kind of interfere. And did you notice when they were talking about the Sunday Night Slam that Jim Cornette was actually getting like really extremely annoyed and pissed off at that guy that was behind him? So that was comical, and that's pretty much all I have noted there.
The main thing I have noted is, once again, we can't end Raw on a high note. We have this good match, but instead of ending with that, first we're going to get this shitty Diesel commercial. The Magic Foundation thing for AIDS, that's fine enough. I'm not going to say foundations for AIDS are a bad thing, but unfortunately, the WWF microphone made its fucking ugly head here again, and the technical difficulties, we could barely hear Magic's comments. I was a little disappointed in that. The one thing I could make out, he played basketball with Diesel, so yay. The rest of it, Owen Hart, Bret Hart for next week. That's good to hear. For the 900th time, we're going to see them, but they're both great, so I can't expect that to be bad, but everything else we get here is reminder about this Tatanka Luger thing we don't care about, and that's how we end it. We get to see these two shit cans for the final moments of Raw.
Yeah, once again, agreeing with you guys on all of this. Joe, the AIDS benefit for children with an Undertaker and a pallbearer walking around. Just, I don't know. Like, I'm sure those kids loved it, but that almost seems like it was in poor taste. Almost. Honestly, if I was like on my deathbed or with a terminal disease, I would probably wish to see the Undertaker or pallbearer too. So, some kind of comfort. Just so pallbearer can say to me, "This is your death certificate." Yeah, putting over Diesel is having played basketball with Magic Johnson. Like, I don't know what to think about that. I mean, I guess it's a cool piece of trivia, but I don't know. That it seemed just a little bit too much for me. Like you said, guys. Like, who gives a shit? As far as Bret and Owen Hart goes, I'm a little down on this, but only because we've been here, we've done this.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that because
and for the past couple weeks, we hear Bret Hart is racist, so he's going to fight his brother again. I mean, where are you going with it?
And then Bob Backlund at WrestleMania after that too.
Right.
Like, nothing racist for the next 2 weeks at least. And plus, you can go back and hear this in our breakdown of SummerSlam 94, but Bret and Owen can have a fantastic match, but whenever you get that cage in there, it kind of fucks up the chemistry a little bit. I am not necessarily looking forward to that. And then, Ryan, you hit the nail on the head. We can't just end, even if we had ended with, the AIDS Foundation thing. That would have been great. Mm-hmm. I would have been perfectly happy to end this episode hearing that over $500,000 was raised for ill children. That'd be awesome. But no, we have to end it with Lex Luger's puffing and blowing and gesticulating and just looking like an idiot, like he always does. That being said, that's it. That's the end of the episode. We're going to take it over to highlights and lowlights. Ryan, why don't you go first with this one?
Highlight is the Razor Ramon Henry Godwinn match. I enjoyed this match. These are two guys that I really liked, and not only was the match entertaining, but I enjoy seeing where this storyline's going with Razor Ramon the Kid and Double J and the Roadie. So that's my highlight. Low light, King Kong Bundy versus two no-name jobbers. No explanation needed.
My highlight is the Kama and Mongo McMichael fight. Even though there's nothing long-term happening here, I just think that it was very fun to watch, and everybody involved performed their job flawlessly. Low light for me is just, in general, the lack of wrestling on this show. Even though we got two pretty good matches, it's just the focus was definitely not on the wrestling.
That's a great point. And now that you've said that, I'm going to amend mine. So I had two highlights coming out of this. Tied equally was the fight with Mongo McMichael and Kama. I thought that was great. That took me completely by surprise, how that went from like 0 to 60 in less than a second. The drink being thrown in the face and the appearance of it being a real fight. I really, really enjoyed that. And then the number 2 highlight for me was Syd in that promo. Even though he did nothing, he did everything. Just staring into the depths of my terrified, shaking soul. I loved it. It was great. It got me engaged. And that's the one thing that I always look for with anything in any of these episodes is what breaks through my jaded, cynical ass and actually engages me with the material. And that certainly did it. Those 2 things engaged me. Before you said that, Joe, my low light was going to be the King Kong Bundy match. But now you're right. I have a second low light as well. Just the overall lack of wrestling here. It was horrible. The amount of non-wrestling shit that we had to go through watching this. Promos and vignettes and video packages and all that stuff. They have their time and place, and they are few and far between. I tune in for wrestling, and we didn't get very much of it here. But, I mean, again, that being said, that fucking Bundy match was horrible. Horrible. So yeah, that's it for me. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around March 20th, 1995 for us?
It's safe to say that we will never enjoy a King Kong Bundy match. Ever. First note here from the Observer notes and news is that on March 20th, something sad happened. Big John Studd died of liver cancer.
Ah, jeez.
March 20th, 1995. So the day this show aired. So I kind of hope that next week's Raw mentions that because Big John Studd is certainly a legend. Another piece of news here is that the 1-2-3 Kid has apparently suffered his second concussion in 10 days.
Shoo.
He got this from a match against Hakushi at the Garden at a house show, which could possibly explain why he hasn't seen any like actual ring action. He's kind of been doing some other stuff.
And why they got replaced last week.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
There was a house show scheduled for San Jose on March 14th that was canceled due to a lack of ticket sales. Ooh. So that just shows you where we are here in 95. If you remember, I mentioned Chris Candido and Tammy Sitch were working with a cheerleader gimmick when they first came in, and now they are being switched to a Tony Little and Susan Powder physical fitness guru gimmick, which that's what we remember, where they yell at the audience for being fat and out of shape.
Yep.
And the last piece I have here is I just want to mention that Meltzer described Mongo McMichael's work on commentary as coming off so arrogant that Kama actually came out looking like the babyface here. And I don't know if I agree with that. I kind of get what he's saying there, but I don't agree. And that is all.
Yeah, I certainly do not agree with that at all.
We find ourselves disagreeing with Meltzer fairly often, so, you know.
Yeah.
The only other thing is something I actually found real quick, something I found that was not in the Observer, but Steve McMichael actually finished second in a campaign for mayor in 2013 for Romeoville, Illinois. So I had no idea he was a guy that was getting into politics, but apparently he's loved in the Chicago area.
Huh. Well, I mean, he does seem like a genuinely all right guy to, I mean, I'm sure that he probably has his diva moments, but, you know, I would maybe enjoy having a beer with him. He seems like he'd be a pretty fun guy to hang out with. That's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. While you're there, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on March 27th, 1995, with matches featuring Bret Hart, Owen Hart, and that's it. There will only be one wrestling match in our episode of Raw next week, so I I look forward to discussing all of that filler with all of you then. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.